I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania called Montrose. I came to undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania. I then went to medical school at Jefferson, and I've stayed here for the remainder of my training. I did my residency here, my chief residency here, and joined faculty as a hospitalist. Day in the life for me, so it depends on if I'm on service or not. So I see patients about half of my time. The other half of my time is spent as the program director for the internal medicine residency training program. But regardless, my day starts with getting my daughters out of bed in the morning, getting them ready for school, and then I come in to work. If I am seeing patients, I hit the floor running, see patients, round with my team, spend time doing some teaching, and then, work with them to make sure to deliver great patient care. If I'm not on the floors and I am here in the office, it depends on the time of the year. There's a cycle that happens for program directors, but right now I'm in the middle of recruitment season, so I spend most of my days talking to the applicants in the morning and talking to them about training at Jefferson, and then my afternoons interviewing individual applicants. So I chose internal medicine because as I was going through all of my rotations as a third-year student, I realized I loved everything. I loved every rotation I spent time on, but ultimately what I liked about each of them was addressing the individual patient problems, and I felt like internal medicine allowed for me to approach the whole patient in a way that the other specialties weren't able to provide for me. So that's why I chose internal medicine. I would say I have two highlights. And the first one is that I was lucky enough to be hired at Jefferson to create a capstone course for them, or a finishing course, sort of. It's called Gateway to Internship, everything you need to know to be an intern that you weren't taught. And so I was lucky enough to work with the institution to develop that curriculum, implement it as an elective, and actually launch it as a class-wide course 3 years ago now for all 280 students.
Wow.
And that was a really great experience. It allowed me to delve into the world of curricular development, allowed me a lot of individual interactions with the fourth-year medical students, and I got to really work with them on making them more comfortable at being interns. I recently transitioned to the program director role about a year and a half ago, and I handed off the course to Dr. Kavatzos at that time because I didn't feel I could do both most effectively. And being the program director, while I didn't realize it at the time, I think has ultimately always been one of my major career goals. And so being able to oversee the residency program and help train the future internal medicine physicians is definitely a passion of mine. I think my advice to medical students as I think about my trajectory in my career is that sometimes you end up doing things that you hadn't planned, and that's great. And so as a young physician, take those opportunities. Say yes when things come your way, because from that, so many other things can develop and grow. So I didn't recognize when saying yes to overseeing the Gateway course that it was gonna translate into me being someone who is looked at nationally as being an expert in the transitions to internship, which then allowed for me to take on the role as the program director. And so what started out as saying yes to creating an elective, I think has translated to a lot of opportunities for me as a early career physician, and I think that is a great opportunity that I wouldn't have wanted to give up now. So I always knew I wanted to be an educator, not just a physician. It's something that I had done a lot all the way back to middle school. I'd been involved in teaching in some way. My mother's a teacher, and so I knew that I wanted that to be part of my career. I don't think I fully understood what that meant. So I didn't know, when I first started medical school, I thought that meant that I wanted to be someone who taught at an academic institution and rounded at the bedside and was a clinician that was caring for patients with residents involved, so I could teach them how I was caring for the patients as well. The further along I got in training, the more I recognized that I enjoyed doing not just that, the bedside teaching, which I still love, but also thinking more on a larger scale for curriculum development and overseeing ultimately the residency program.